Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I just want to remind people there's a person taking minutes, so please state your name if you intend to speak for any time, and they can get your name in the minutes. Are there any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and or pressing matters that will require a note of ratification at a future meeting?
No, nothing.
Any board members? All right, we're all set on that. Let's go to public comment on items not on the agenda. 3 minutes per person. Any? Going once? Seeing none, we'll move along to the manager's report.
It's a little awkward. I guess I'll stand. It's easier than trying to sit and speak to people behind me. So, just a couple of quick updates. We are underway with paving. So, not the best time of the year, 90-degree heat. It's tough work, but they're making progress. It looks good so far. Fingers crossed they should be done maybe by Monday or Tuesday of next week, it looks like. So, that portion of the summer work will be done. We still have another major project we're trying to get in. The school board bought us one of those 2 rapid flashing beacons for the crosswalk at School Street in front of Central Elementary, where we took down the building at 66. And so we'll work with Highway after they're done with this paving project to see if we can get the foundations installed. The units are already here, and then we'll get an electrician and try to get them wired up and operational before school starts. End of August, early September. So at least there'll be something there more visible. And we're still doing the intersection study. If you remember, we got some money from V-Trans to do a more comprehensive review of that entire intersection and all the circulation around that school area. So that'll be ongoing as well. So hopefully you'll see that project done before school starts, and we'll see where we go for the rest of the summer. So keep it short and sweet.
All right. Move along to the agenda. First item on the agenda is to award the contract for historic structures report. Walter's here someplace, I know he is. There he is. You want to run with this, Walter, and introduce it? There is information in the packet. I hope everybody's had a chance to look at it. The most important one is the one with the money on it. So.
Yep, the one with the money on it. That's what's important with all this stuff. And folks have a sense as to what the status is of the building. We're looking for getting some funding from the National Park Service through the Save American Treasures program. Bernie Sanders is earmarked. Of course, an earmark these days, it ain't over till it's over. We may not know about that money for another year, but we've got the attention of the congressional delegation. We have that lady I know is going out, but he's working behind the scenes in support, making sure that we're going to get him some money. I'm very certain of that from conversations with that. In order to get that earmark, in order for us to get the funding that we need to keep this place going, and to do the 100-year restoration work, it's key to have really good assessment of what it's going to cost to fix the building. So if I were to say, well, we got to get the foundation done, it probably costs somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000 to $80,000, $90,000. That's not going to wash with the National Park Service. They need to know what the engineering study said needs to be done and what good cost estimates are for the re-engineering and the stabilization of the foundation. Same thing with the plaster. Before we do more plaster work in here, which is horribly expensive, that corner's settled down at least a ½ inch since last November. It's moving away. Before we start spending more money, we need to have something like a historic structure report to help make the argument with the National Park Service, with the funders, to get the funding that we need in order to get this place preserved for our grandchildren and for our great-grandchildren. So that's my rant about that. I know there's a hefty bottom line on it. Just as a background, an RFP went out to a number of engineering architectural firms, posted publicly on the website. We had it in the shopper. We had it sent directly to 13 different major architectural engineering firms that do historic preservation work. 4 of them responded. Top-notch, top-flight organizations. Some of whom do things like the South Portico, the White House, Monticello. People who do major work, including major work on Meeting House, the 1681 old ship meeting house down in Hingham, Massachusetts. Unfortunately, we don't have the $175,000 to do just the report, and we thank them very kindly. We also had some other really good but fairly expensive proposals. The vetting group was comprised of John Letman, Scott Pickup, Gary Fox, and myself, preparing and going through the proposals that came in. We settled on 2. We recommended to the Historic Preservation Commission that they support the proposal that was made by a Vermont-based group, Alyssa Papazian, Laz Skangas, and Bob Neal. They're award-winning, top-notch, top-flight engineers and historic preservationists. They're coming in at a bottom line of a little bit more than $50,000. Somewhere's right. I've got my clipboard, which I accidentally left somewhere. Oh, there it is. So I can see what the actual bottom line is.
56096.
Yep. That would include if they have to do an archaeological test pit survey as they're doing the foundation work. They're anticipating using ground-penetrating radar to figure out what's going on with the foundation. If they use that, then they don't have to do the test pits. But the test pits that would be required by the state archaeologists be done if we do any kind of digging around and ground disturbance. So if you look at that, that's the big bottom line. Hopefully about $4,000 of that would not have to be spent because of the ground-penetrating radar and the study that would result of that. So, questions, thoughts?
As I said outside, I forewarned you, I'm asking the money. Can you give us a little explanation of where the funds would be allocated? You mentioned you have some grant funds, et cetera, so you can kind of...
Yeah, we have a funding stack. We have a core donation, private donation, $25,000 that's going towards this project. We have a CLG grant from the Vermont Division for Historic Preservation that will pay for $5,000 for a survey of the windows. It's an idea as to how best to approach window restoration. We have $6,000 from the CLG, from another CLG grant to help pay for the part of it will cover the scanning of the building that will then result in some virtual reality renderings that will help us not only with preservation work, but also educational and help us address ADA. We'll be able to get people walking around upstairs, even though they may be,
Anyone have any questions for Paul in regards to?
The only other 2 pieces, just so that the board's aware, Peter, we did authorize a $10,000 transfer, if you remember the prior board meeting, so that's currently recognized in the meeting house revenues. On top of the donations and the other monies that Walter had described, you have more than enough money to cover this with existing funds within the budget, so there's no additional appropriations necessary. So it's covered.
and just to give just a real quick shout out to the Preservation Trust of Vermont, when they were here doing a field inspection a couple of months ago, they said we'll give you $5,000 for the assessment. So that was, we didn't even ask for that, they were just here. They were the ones too, by the way, that initially started pulling out the numbers.
Okay, is there any other further questions? Seeing and hearing none, I would entertain a motion to award the contract and authorize the manager to sign.
I'd like to make a motion to award a contract for the historic structures report to what's the group called?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to award the contract for historic structures report. Total of $56,096, and we do have the funds to cover it, so we don't have to go Rob and Peter to pay Paul. So, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor would say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Well, you're not done yet.
I know I'm not done yet.
I would see you get jump back in the door.
I'll find out.
Okay, now we've got the update to the cemetery committee proposal. So Walter has a letter in the packet. I hope everybody got a chance to read it. You're on here quite a bit, Walter.
Well, very quickly, I think I've already made some reference when we were doing our walkabout. Earlier this year, a quick preface, one of the very first guests that I met here back 5 years ago when I came in on a Memorial Day, on that Saturday of that Memorial Day weekend, he came in complaining about falling stones. They went out to see their family stones, they were falling over. I said, yeah, I'll pass the word on. But the point I'm trying to get at is that it's an ongoing issue. And some of us have been trained before the pandemic kicked in. Now the pandemic has passed. In conversations, John may recall the enthusiasm to approach the Vermont Division for Historic Preservation to fund to the tune of $7,500, a conference that could bring in experts to help us with the lay of the land, the landscape view, and also the stone cleaning and stone resetting. The Vermont Division gave us that grant, and now as the winter turned into spring, turned into the summer, as we're open here, having conversations with folks like Jim, who's been volunteering since last fall doing some of the work out there. Like Charlie Jarvis coming around and helping with some of the cleaning and organizing things with the Duvall family. That as this group is coming together through conversation, it seemed to me that here was a group of people. I can give a shout out to Karen Jarrett from Saxon's River, who has a lot of experience with monuments. I understand involved with monuments at Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Mass. Folks who have professional expertise, who have enthusiasm, people who are interested in helping better appreciate and restore the landscape and to support that conference that's coming up and to help people get organized. So at this point, there are 6 people who stepped forward at various times. We've had kind of a quick organizational meeting to say, what might this group look like to support, as a committee of volunteers, the ongoing work of maintaining that part of the National Historic Landmark. Just to stress, just not this building, but the National Historic Landmark is this 4.4 acre area, including the graveyard and the cemetery. That we have Charlie Jarvis and we have Karen Jarrett, who are both interested very much in the stones, as is Diana Jones. Diana Jones has always started getting into training and learning how to clean stones. We have Stan Telstra from Saxon's River, who stepped forward to help with some resetting. We have Jim Mullen, who's been helping with the landscaping and the viewscapes of what the yard looks like, just not the stones, but the tree lines, the fence, etc. And then Cass Wright has been very helpful in helping identify trees and how to approach landscape maintenance. So that group of people have already been doing, I guess because there's been conversation within the select board over the last several months, and there have been some issues, I guess that came up in the front page of the Radical Reformer not too long ago. That this might be an opportunity for, at least for the group interested here, to be acknowledged and to be allowed to do, because we don't have any rules or regulations about a cemetery commission or this committee. It's a group of people that I think will organically come up and say we are willing to roll up our sleeves and lend a hand. And so I guess what I'm asking is the select board to consider affirming this group, approving what we're doing. As maybe the start. I'm not going to volunteer what we're doing here for the whole town. You know, a whole town needs to be involved too, but at least what we're doing here, with the group, folks, let's give a shout out to. So that's the nature of the proposal, to give you an idea, and they're all very much involved too, with this organizing of the conference next year.
Any questions for Walter? The only question or a statement I would make is that we get together and sign up some sort of a charge made up for this committee, so they know, and the board knows what's up, and then we can go forward with that, get it ready for our September 20 meeting for approval, and we'll get something written up and of what you're supposed to be doing and how you're going to accomplish some of that stuff.
We'll do it.
Okay, with your permission, I'd just like to stay, it seems we're in the historic preservation, jump to item 4, which is an appointment to the Historic Commission, and looking back to 3 for the hayfield. So in your packet, there is a letter recommending, let's see right here. Miles Mickles is leaving, and they want to report Karen Jarrett, excuse me. Is Karen here?
Jared.
She is here. She's right there if anybody would like to know who she is. So I would entertain a motion to appoint Karen Jarrett for the Historic Preservation Committee.
I move to appoint Karen Jarrett to the Historic Preservation Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Congratulations. Okay, now let's go to back up to 3, discuss the Rockingham lease on Hayfield. Mr. Sennett is here. So, would you like to explain what you're attempting to do other than renew the contract, I assume?
Well, I would like to renew it, but I would also, I'm asking the board if they're going to waive the lease fee on it. Because of the time that I put into that field and keeping it the way that it is, the maintenance and stuff like that on it.
And what happens to the hay? Is it sold or?
I use some of it is sold, but the cost of the fertilizer and everything is just going right out of sight this year.
Mr. Sennett was taken over from Link DeVaul, who used to do it and leased the field for several years, and of course Link's not here anymore, so he has taken over in his place.
I've leased them for the last 6 years.
Yeah, so what's the board's pleasure?
Question for you,
Yeah.
what is the current fee?
3 years, it's $300 a year.
And that one terminates on the 31st of March 2023.
Right.
So the current agreement.
The reason that I'm asking now is so that if you wanna continue what I'm doing, I would like to know by the 1st of September, so I could have fertilizer put on it. If not, then I guess in March it'll probably be terminated, I guess.
Well, if we don't, and he's not interested, do we have to then mow it and everything?
It would have to be maintained if you want it to look the way it looks now, certainly. I mean, that's one of the advantages of having somebody. work
Right,
there.
so it would represent a cost for us not to have him there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right now I'm paying to maintain the field.
Right.
I'm asking to waive that fee on that field.
So it's
I'll still
basically,
fertilize it, pick up the hay, remove it, just like I have for the last 6 years. And Link DeVaul was doing it previously. So
okay, yeah.
that's the only change that I'm asking for.
What's the board's pleasure? Reduce the fee, remove it, or continue as usual?
I move that we agree to reduce the fee.
You want to waive the fee?
Move or reduce? I didn't hear that.
What?
What was it you moved to what? I didn't hear it.
That we reduce the fee.
Reduce the fee.
Okay, reduce it down much. Half of what I'm paying now?
I had to figure maybe $100 a year.
I was gonna say $100 a year, yeah.
I don't know, that's up to you.
I can live with that.
All right.
With a 3-year contract? With a 3-year
3 years,
lease?
$100 a year.
Okay, I can live with that.
It's
That's about April 1, 2023. Just for the board.
starting in 2025, correct.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
When that
So-
lease is up in March, then
Yep.
sign them.
Okay, is there any,
I'll second Buddy's motion.
okay, any further comments, suggestions from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of reducing the fee for the lease of the hayfield for a 3-year period, $100 per year, would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed would say nay. Motion carries. Guess you're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sykes, coming in. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5, which is the RLF grant program update. There's information in your packet. There's a housing loan fund in there. It's well, another, finally got it finalized, I assume, so. So, Mr. Fox, would you like to expound on that? Or?
Yes. So we've always had a business revolving loan fund, and 2 years ago, with the issues with housing preservation, the commission decided to put $100,000 towards a housing revolving loan fund. Out of the business one, there's $500,000 in it, and also wanted to create a fund that could help folks in the development of the nuisance program to have a carrot. So the nuisance policy is sort of a stick, and wanted to be able to have something the town could offer to help with repairs if folks couldn't make those. And so we applied for a housing preservation grant, which we received. And so there's now two housing loan programs in the housing revolving loan fund. The $100,000 one, pretty straightforward. You folks did approve it in April. And then the one that's the housing preservation grant. That one is a little more complicated because it's USDA money. So when we provide a loan with it, it has to meet a whole bunch of criteria. There's many strings attached to it. It's leveraged. It has to be a third party that's used to working with housing with the low-income community, and they have to have funds in it too. Basically, the policy we've adjusted to have those numbers accurate, which those details were missing from the one that had been approved in April. And so that you could see that where the example is there's $10,000 from the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, and then our Housing Preservation Grant Fund will loan $5,000, and it's automatic because it's a participation loan with Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. Maxes out at $5,000. It's USDA grant money, so we don't take a recommendation to the select board with those like we do for the other housing loan fund or the business loan fund. And the change that the commission voted on, the revolving loan fund committee voted to bring to the select board, was that we also add if the $15,000 isn't covering all of the repairs, that we add a $5,000 grant. So the work is being done already, and the house, we can see it's there, it's being done. There's more funds needed to complete it. We do get reimbursed from the USDA for these funds when we give them out. So the committee wanted to provide a $5,000 grant that doesn't have to get repaid in addition to the $5,000 loan. And so again, it's a separate fund. It's USDA Housing Preservation Fund. It does not impact the revolving loan funds that we have. And so that's the details of the policy that's in front of you for adoption today. The change is that you have the accurate details on the participation percentages and the request to add the $5,000 grant if needed on top of the $15,000. And $10,000 of it is a grant from Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. The $5,000 in our fund is a loan with our housing preservation grant.
So question about that. You said if the $15,000 isn't enough, then someone could apply for this $5,000 grant, right?
So, yes.
Yeah, so now, does that mean, you went on to say, that means the work has been started but it hasn't been completed. Suppose your budget for your work is 20,000, but you haven't started it yet. Can you then apply for the $5,000?
Well, no,
grant?
so generally, the applications come in and the estimates are at $20,000, but if, with the loan, we're pretty safe because it's getting paid back.
Right.
But if the work isn't completed by the time actually a week or two ahead of when the grant expires so that we can provide all the documentation and request reimbursement, then we don't get the USDA money. So, so we require, there may be $20,000 estimates, but we want to see the works actually cost that. They have invoices, they paid them, and then they still need the other $5,000, and we can see the work's being done, the contractors are there. So we're more sure that the $5,000 we give away will get reimbursed from
Okay,
USDA.
so the work must
Since it's
be-
a grant, if we provided it and then they didn't finish the work,
Right.
then
You wouldn't
it's
get
not
that.
the grant
I
that's
see.
reimbursed.
So
it comes
I
out
just
of
wanted to
our-
get clarification there, that the work must be started before they're eligible for that grant.
Yes. Yeah,
Gary, I noticed that there's no collateral requirement,
that's correct.
and we, as you know, we've had some challenges on collection of payment of some of the commercial loans. Do you see any increased risk for the town from lack of collateral requirement?
Yeah, so I don't, for two reasons. The $5,000 loan is repayable from the USDA. By using it as a loan, it revolves, and we can loan it again for another housing preservation loan. And if we had collateral on it, the USDA would not. It's to assist low-income households in making repairs to housing. Maintenance, it's generally deferred maintenance. They often can't make the payments, and the USDA would not count it as part of their program if we had collateral on it. So we couldn't ask to get reimbursed. In that case, where there's collateral, we go to the Revolving Loan Fund Housing Committee for town funds.
Right.
If they borrow town funds, they can ask for a $5,000 loan from the town fund, and it goes through the regular process. The committee looks at it, they're likely to pay it back, what type of collateral do they recommend? That proposal goes to the select board, do you folks approve it or not? It's only this housing preservation USDA grant that has that rule, no collateral, it's automatic. It needs the participation of someone like Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust or Sevka that has experience with housing, home repairs for low income. So it's a third program really, it's a separate fund, it's not part of the town fund.
Thank you for that explanation.
Anyone else on board? One question, one thing with a statement. You and I talked about this, if you look at section D on this, participation loans equal or less than 5,000, it does say that the select board does not have to approve that, which is not a big issue, as you explained just now, that it's repayable, USDA faces it. But could we get a memo of sorts that goes to the select board just to keep the board updated on what's going on with the loans? I mean, we get them from the RLF business section. It wouldn't be bad, just a memo stating the applicant, the amount of loan, term interest and term of loan. That's all we need, just
Yes.
so we know what's going on.
Yeah, so we're thinking that that it would be appropriate to provide a quarterly report on all of the revolving loan fund so that you know where that's at. Is it sufficient to be included in that, or would you like a notice, a memo when the
I
loan's
think that notice
executed?
when the loan's actually,
When it's
you know,
executed,
have a
okay.
meeting, if it's just get to us by meeting, just a memo in the
Yeah.
packet that says,
I can do
you know,
that,
we
sure.
should go loan for.
No problem, we will.
And that way there, we got a thing, then we can get the quarterly report, we can start looking for those applicants.
We'll add that to the development office procedure.
I don't know if you want to add that into the policy here, but it's not necessary as long as we all know on the same page that it's going to happen, but
Yes.
somewhere
Yeah.
I think it ought to be added in there so that any future board members or if the board changes, it is policy. Do you have a signature page? I've got one here, but I don't know if you got the original copy somewhere, Gary?
I have the same one that you have.
Okay, well, Gary's hunting for that. I entertain a motion to approve the grant program update and have the board sign.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the Powerlift Housing Grant Program update. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. It is coming around for signatures. Okay, moving right along here. Real estate purchase option for the agreement for BF train station. Gary, you're up again, I guess, on that one. There is information in the packet.
The town has been working with Vermont Rail System, who owns Green Mountain Railroad, so on their behalf, who own the train station in Bellows Falls, on the purchase for a little over a year. And there's been a basic agreement on the price of $250,000 and basic agreement that historic artifacts in the station would go along with it. And that helps us with the appraisal, meeting the federal grants need to see appraisals meet what those funds are going to. And so this purchase and sales agreement has those details in it, but then the second piece is that the Northern Borders Regional Commission and the Vermont Community Development Program, which grants the community development block funds, they each had separate requirements to not show any funds committed to the project until there's a certain activity that happens. And for the Northern Border Regional Commission, it's for them to provide a notice to proceed, which tells them, one, that they've granted the funds. They don't want to show their name on a commitment if they haven't awarded a grant yet, and they haven't awarded those grants yet. And they have some other conditions that they like to see before they provide a notice to proceed. So that's where number 5, and I'm explaining now why it's a purchase option and not a straight purchase and sales. So number 5 has that northern border option in it, and then let's see, the Vermont Community Development Program, they need to see that the NEPA process has been completed, and they provide a letter saying that you're authorized to use federal funds in the project once they've approved the NEPA policy. And so that's in here as well as part of the option. And we do additionally, there is a commitment of $10,000 because we're asking the railroad to hold the station, hold the price, etc., for a year while we complete these. And then in actuality, they should be done pretty soon. We have engaged VHB to do the NEPA policy, and they're also going to do the Section 106 at the same time, because there's a lot of the same work. They're familiar with it, and so it's more cost efficient and time efficient to wrap the Section 106 piece in there. I don't know if there's anything else about this. The $10,000 will go towards the $250,000 when it's executed. And we hope to have both Northern Borders and, Northern Borders and Vermont Community Development Program clear by October 1st. The ideal is that we still close in October, and we have applied already for funds that would be ready in October to start doing the lead and asbestos cleanup. And I think that goes to the Brownfields Committee this week, so we'll find out if that fund's available.
Right.
Has anyone done a survey of the railroad inventory?
Yes, so that's in the purchase option. There's a addendum with pictures of most of it, not all of it.
Greg, I just want to update the board on the grant amounts for the northern borders and for the Vermont Community Development and also the DTF funds, just so the board has a sense of where the funding stack is lining up.
Yes. So we haven't heard of the USDA Community Facilities Grant. The Northern Borders Grant is a $350,000 request, and we will hear about that in August, but we don't know yet. The Vermont Community Development Program we'll see later this evening. It's the last agenda item. But that is a $60,000 grant to go towards RFP and construction grant, management of that RFP process for selecting the contractors and subcontractors, and we are also in the process of an economic development authority grant to add to those $60,000 to help pay for that pre-development work. That one we have less experience with. Betsy is communicating with them, doing a lot of work on it, and we should know at the next select board meeting if how likely it is that we'll get that grant. And of course, the $200,000 from the Downtown Transportation Fund, as you know, that was awarded, and they're waiting until the NEPA process is complete to write the grant agreement. But they have sent an award letter that's committed, obligated funds.
And we still have the money that came from the approved article from the town.
Yeah, $60,000 from the town taxpayers.
Right.
Yeah, so that's so the funds just between the $200,000 award and the town taxpayer funds cover the purchase and sales agreement. So we do have the obligated funds. If we were refused for everything else we do, we have the funds obligated to execute the purchase and sales.
Okay, any further questions for Gary on the sales option? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the real estate purchase option agreement for the VF train station.
So moved.
We got a second.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the real estate purchase option agreement, and do you want to add to authorize the manager to sign?
And authorize the manager to sign it.
Okay, you'll second that?
Second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. And we get to the financial report.
So we're still closing out year end. A couple of larger items that we're still waiting on are Fema submission, which we have reported as receivable, the $609,000. Has still not been received. There's been no particular correspondence to tell us we have any issues. It's been approved through the state. It's at Boston FEMA District 1 at the moment. So we're just waiting on somebody to authorize the ACHs, and we should see the money in our accounts. But you'll notice that the highway account is severely impacted by that because those expenses are reported in last year's budget year. So you'll see that some of those accounts are out of alignment based on that FEMA reimbursement. We do have, like I said, for the most part, most of our expenses are in, and we've done a soft close on that budget year. We're going to have a slight surplus when all is said and done, which is a positive for our performance for the year. And we already have the auditors on site starting to look at some of the numbers, so we'll have an early audit this year, so we have time to get a full audit report and do all the follow-up prior to town meeting. I know the last couple of years has been tight with some of the issues with getting the audit out, so that's some of the basic highlights.
Rick, I see you tentatively throwing your hand
Got
up.
a question, yeah. Is our finance manager ready to roll on the delinquent taxpayers? I mean, a month has elapsed where we haven't informed them. Is that rolling?
We are in a position now, we've done our 60-day window of notification. So we have an updated list based on that 60-day window. There have been some payments. The state will not commit to a date for any of the applicants that are in their program, the VHAP program. All they will say is that they will give you an application number, and based on the legislation, they are basically at a standstill. So talk to the attorney. We're going to go forward with the accounts at this point forward that do not have an account number in VHAP. So that next round of notices will be going out. And we'll have an update for you in September as to when we potentially will have a date for an actual tax sale. Probably late September, early October, the way it's looking right now.
Some of our biggest debtors are commercial properties. And one of those individuals sold 6 lots last week in a separate transaction. We have the power to attach, if it's commercial, we're not talking residential, we have the power to attach any of that person's transactions to get the $42,000.
Well, you have to be a secured creditor with a lien or something else to go after that specifically. And so we'll see what we get through tax sale. We have got some notice interest on some of the commercial properties from banks who are interested in potentially securing those as well. So I think the sale itself will be reasonably successful. If I remember looking at the list, there's probably 8 to 10 properties that are currently in the VHAP program that have an application number. Again, it's up to the individual homeowner to apply and get that number.
Yeah.
So if they start now, it's too late.
Right, but the commercial properties are the ones that, if you look through that list, the biggies, the people who
Larger numbers.
$25,000 to $40,000 and want to pay taxes, those people aren't covered by the residential umbrella, as it were.
Right. So we'll see the next phase, we'll kick it off, and we'll see where we go from there. And if we were successful, we have received, I think, 3 payments, 3 of the just various letters that have already come out. So there has been some activity. So there's been somewhat beneficial.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else have any questions on the report before I start? Okay, if you look on page 2, you'll notice that the revenue for our recycling, which is my bugaboo, is almost the equivalent to the expenses on page 7. If you add the 54,000 that's gone to the transfer station expense, so we paid to get rid of stuff. This year we lost $61,000 down there in that operation. Now, you're going to say, how do we do that? Well, you got to realize that we are paying people down there to the tune of $90,000. So that's a big chunk of change. Some of the other expenses, that's one of them. The other big change is the $48,000 we have to pay for solid waste disposal. I don't know what that covers. I could turn to Scott. I don't know if
The hauling, it's just the tipping fees and the hauling.
So
It's just gone up, and they've all added surcharges for fuel as well.
because our wages down there is $94,000. The reason I'm bringing this all up is we're getting more people crying that they want to open that swap shop. Well, I got one today from a person in Putney. Now, Putney belongs to Brattleboro. Brattleboro runs a swap shop. I don't know why they aren't going down there rather than coming up here. It's no different in distance for them to travel. I took it upon myself to go to Walpole. Walpole has a hell of an operation over there, but they have twice or 3 times the size of the area that we run. They store a lot of their cardboard. Scott and I have been talking about maybe entertaining, baling cardboard and selling it. They get $8,000 for a trailer load, which is 45,000 pounds, which equates to 17 cents a pound. They don't get that, then they have to store it somewhere. So they have 4 junk trailers, I call them junk because they're not roadable, that they store all that stuff and then wait for the price. We don't have that option. We would have to put it all in the building. So, plus running the baler is $100,000 for a baler for cardboard. They bale everything. They bale all their plastics by code. All the little code numbers you see on the bottom, they separate all the colors. They don't have much except for wages, except for their manager. He gets benefits and the whole 9 yards. It's got to be somewhere around $80,000 a year they pay him. That's one person. Now, they are losing more than we are. I've seen their financials. So they'll give them to you, they don't care. I also checked into their swap shop over there. They limit the take-ins to 3. You can only bring in 3 items. They scan them, it has to go through the rubbish area first, and if those people think it's worth saving, they'll send it into the other attached area for the swap. Then they'll go through it again, and if they don't like it, they send them back and make them pay to get rid of it. If we were going to do that, we would have to run that. The other interesting thing that was brought to my attention, books has been a big bugaboo down there. Hardcovers, you know, encyclopedias, dictionaries, nobody uses those anyway. If you've got a phone, you can look up anything on Google anyway. But they have what they call discoverbooks.com. They have containers like those little yellow clothing boxes you see in different areas. When the books come in, any books the center doesn't want to take, chuck them right in there without even looking at them. Just chuck them in the thing. When the container's full, they come and take it away for nothing. So that's an option if we were to do anything Scott and I have talked about. Maybe we do the books. I know everybody's been saying, oh, we can get volunteers. Well, for the 5 years I worked down there, 2 days a week, volunteers don't cut it. I can tell you that for a fact. Unless you pay them, there's the only way they're going to show up. And I don't know how we're going to be able to afford another couple of people to run that. I mean, we had a retired librarian that would do the books, and they came into our place down there. She'd come in for a couple hours a day, you know, both days, and then go ahead. Wintertime, that building's not heated, so if you're going to be down there for 4 or 5 hours, that's not fun. And especially in this heat, it's not fun either. So just something to keep in mind. Yes?
Yeah, I've been plagued by people contacting me about the swap shop as well. And they just want to talk in sort of platitudes, you know, about the whole concept of, you know, reducing the waste stream. I was going to suggest that we form, the last thing I got said from the Conservation Commission, said, you know, they want to work with the select board and develop a plan. So I think maybe we should, and I'll volunteer to do this, join with them and make a little committee. And, you know, my feeling is that there's not going to be any workable plan, but I'm willing to work on it and do like you did, go over to Walpole, see their books, how they do it, see how they do it in Brattleboro, and be able to like sit and work with these people and say, well, what do you think? Is this going to work or not? I kind of feel like it won't, but I'm willing to give it an effort.
The other thing that I was told at Springfield Walpole, they operate on a donation. If you want to take something, they don't force you to leave a donation, but they do request. They have a donation box there. Walpole says they get very little for donations. He says that it's the people that got the money don't leave anything, and those people that feel guilty about taking something usually throw a couple of bucks in. It works the same way in Springfield. The interesting part I found in Springfield was their help was not checking stickers, like I go down there and check access stickers. The next week my sister came back and told me they're starting to check access stickers now. I don't know if I had any influence on that in Springfield, but we get them a lot of out-of-town people, that's the thing. Rick?
There's a petition coming our way signed by lots and lots of citizens on this topic. I think as a process approach and to be the democratic entity that we want to be, Bonnie's suggestion makes a lot of sense, to listen to people, hear what their ideas are, then respond saying, here's what I found out, why, how much it would cost, and so on. So instead of slamming the door in their faces,
That's the way I feel about it.
I think we should think about it, study it, see how other towns are able to pull it off.
I think we should engage, because this is a large and vocal group, and you know, in discussions with a couple people, I mean, I have to agree with every single thing they said. It's dreadful that so much stuff just goes in the waste stream that's usable. Oh, it's terrible, it's terrible, it's terrible. I think the problem is much larger and systemic, and it's not really the town's problem to address this, you know, and raise your taxes to address this. But I understand people's feelings, and they're very passionate about it. And I think we should work with them, and God, maybe there will be a plan somehow materialize. I really don't think so, but I'm quite willing to work towards finding one. That's just my thought.
But it's a great way to do that, Bonnie. We need a motion to authorize
Yeah,
Bonnie
do we?
to chair such a committee.
It's not on the agenda, so we can't really take any action today. We could probably put it on the September one.
So next, okay. I'm pretty sure the petition will come to us by then, so we can respond.
As I say, if they're thinking of petition, I am totally against that. I mean, volunteers, forget it, because I know how they work. They
Yeah,
come in the
that's it
first
too.
time, oh, it's a great idea, and 2 hours later, they're gone and you never show up again.
Well,
So
that's why I
then we
feel
end up
like-
having to pay somebody, and as I said, we paid $90,000 for people down there now.
I feel like if somebody from the select board is on this committee and can be there to point out the various problems, you know. I mean, like right now, I've got a vacuum cleaner that's shot. It's a new one, it doesn't have a belt, can't be fixed. I could take that to the swap shop. Who's gonna know that it doesn't work? Are you gonna pay somebody to stand there and plug things in and try them out? I've got a weed whacker, battery won't charge. It says it's charged, but it isn't charged. Everybody has that. Weed whackers only last a few years. Who's gonna check that that really works? You know, I mean, people just aren't thinking it through. They have a passionate feeling about it and that you ought to be able to fix this. So I think to have somebody really sit down, go through the nuts and bolts and the nitty gritty with those that are very passionate and say, is there a way? And should it be at the town's expense? So.
The only thing I'll caution the committee is the state is putting pressure on, and Peter didn't address this, but they have asked us, and at some point they might come and more formally ask us, is to do a redemption center for bottles. Because there's apparently only one operating in Springfield at the moment, and I believe one somewhere in Brattleboro.
Yeah.
So there's been a couple of requests for us to provide that service, which is a whole host of issues with that type of an operation. And then the other type of recycling that can actually be very beneficial is when people do clothing, which is very heavy, bulky, and especially people then collect it and they use it for processing for rags, and you can actually get paid for that as well. So there's options out there beyond the swap shop that I think need to be in part of that conversation. We're dealing with very limited space. You guys see what's going on with the electronics recycling. It's taking up more and more space as people are bringing in more and more items. So the space allocation is a real consideration, how we want to address that.
Well, I think what we need to do is respond to this citizen outcry and really sit down with them with some facts and figures and a calculator and give it an honest effort. Say, okay, let's see, because that's what I've said to everybody that's contacted me. Show me your plan. Show me this plan that you think is going to work. And I guess maybe they just don't know where to begin, so maybe we can help them.
You know, as I say, some of the things that were coming in there, I mean, we've had people bring vacuum cleaners in there, and as Gary DeRosa used to say, vacuum cleaners are like rabbits, they breed. You bring one in, and by the end of the day, you got 10. And none of them work.
Yeah.
And guess what? The town taxpayer has to pay to throw it away.
I know.
I accosted one guy, he came in with a vacuum cleaner, and I asked him, there was no cord. I said, is that battery operating? He said, no, it's electric. I goes, what'd you do with the cord? Oh, I cut it off. Well, then he's trying to get it into leave it at the building for some sucker to pick it up and take home.
Right.
So this is the type of stuff that we deal with down there, and I've dealt with it for 5 years, I can tell you right now. You know, the best thing that was there was the book swap. That's not a problem. But what we ended up doing there was we had 2 pickup loads from the Westminster West Library show up to dump their books in there. 2 pickup loads, not just a couple of boxes, but the whole pickup load.
Yeah.
2 of them. They didn't leave them, I can tell you that.
It's very, very problematic.
It's not an easy thing to think. We have a list up there that stuff we do not take.
Yeah.
Had a guy bring in 3 boxes of syringes. You know, can you imagine if we take syringes and somebody takes them home and they're contaminated?
Oh my God.
Or then they come back and say, well, you give these guys drug paraphernalia. Town's responsibility is for that. Yeah. All this blankets and stuff came in, they're all stained, they're dirty. The toaster ovens and stuff, they're filthy. Yeah. we're not gonna clean it, and nobody's gonna take them, so they end up getting tossed.
Yeah.
And we have to pay for it. It's $1,800 the last time we cleaned out the shed. So,
Well, yeah,
so I'm just cautioning you, you know, it may be a nice
Believe me,
idea,
I'm
but,
not for it, Peter, I'm not for it, but I feel like.
you know,
we need to
I've seen
respond.
it, and,
Yeah, but
It's
it
tough.
can work, I mean, it does work in Springfield, so it can work if you have the right, constraints on it. I mean, the woman who runs it there, she says yes or no to everything. If she's not able to be there, it's shut, nobody can go into it. So
Right.
it can work with the right, management and the right people.
It probably can, if the right policies and stuff, the way it was, anybody could just walk in with anything and drop it off, I mean, that's the way it
see,
was.
that was the problem. If you're coming in and somebody's checking, and you're checking somebody else will sneak in the back door and do
Right,
something.
I mean,
walk right out.
you
And then you go in there and there's a mess of stuff sitting on the floor. Well, where'd this come from?
right,
You know, taking folding, bedding and stuff like that, you don't know where it's come from.
I believe me, I.
It could be
I agree.
fleas and everything, you know, everything in there, you don't know, so
I know.
we wouldn't take that stuff anymore.
Right.
But people will still try and dump it in there. So anyway, but we went off a little bit there, but anything else on the financial report? Other than the usual IT expenses, Rick, I noticed they're still up, and internet costs are still up, I guess we gotta look at that. One of the things that I didn't see, the $140,000 income on that grant we got for the extra pay.
The 145,000.
Yeah, it did show up in there.
It's a July 1 number.
Oh, July, okay, I didn't know.
It'll
if it
show up
was-
in the
I didn't know
next,
if it was
right,
June.
next
Okay,
round
all
statements
right.
for the,
'Cause I noticed they had the FEMA rebate in there, and this
we
one.
put that in because it closed within last year's budget. The next report we get will show.
Okay, anyone else have any further questions on finance, Rick?
Hiring status, are there any open positions that you're contemplating pursuing?
We're looking for, in the town right now, I think we're pretty good. We're looking for somebody for winter, but I think we've got somebody already lined up to help us sidewalk plowing, which is fortunate. I think all of our town spots right now are in pretty good shape. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Okay, moving along, sorry to keep you waiting there, Marty, but we're getting there. It's a municipal resolution for VCTV, CDBG grant applications. One is for grass boiler application, and the other is for the town train station planning application for $60,000. The gross is for $500,000. I guess Gary and Marty can kind of take that. There's information in your packet.
So I'm sure many of you are aware of the boiler project at Rockingham Services. We are currently operating with 2 boilers that are, I believe, 38 and 45 years old respectively. They take number 4 oil, which I can only get from one source. I have no ability to shop around or price, look at prices. So we had an engineering study done when I first started. The person came in and did a mechanical study, deemed that a biomass unit with a propane backup would be the best option for us. The cost to that is, of course, expensive. It's $1,870,850. It seemed a very daunting task to source those funds. But I've been working at it, and I'm happy to say we're in the home stretch. And, well, fingers crossed we're in the home stretch. I have Northern Borders money that I can leave. I'm very hopeful that we're getting a large chunk from Northern Borders. That's kind of my anchor grant. Next in the stack is this $500,000 from Community Development Block Grant that I'm asking you to help me apply for. With those two, with USDA loan, with grants that I've secured from Vermont Capital Investment and Wood Heat, and incentives from Efficiency Vermont, and fundraising from the Garage Board, with everything falling into place, we'll be able to replace the boilers next summer. And we'll only have to go through one winter of fuel prices going through the roof. I have an estimate. Best case, we're going to spend an extra $30,000 this year. Worst case, we're going to spend an extra $60,000 this year. And that doesn't come from my tenants. I can't pass that kind of cost on to my tenants. They don't have it either. So it becomes quite I have funds set aside to get me through a year, but if we had 2 years of high fuel costs, it would be very difficult to get to that second year. I can't do that project this year.
Did the ARPA committee recommend that the boiler replacement be one of the recipients of ARPA money?
I did kind of sneak it into the funding stack based upon that. I'm trying to keep the cost I'm asking you for down. I'm trying to source it as much as I can from everything else and then ask for a minimal amount. I think 28,000 is what I put into my budget from the town ARPA funding.
So, Carrie, we approved a big, about a favor sheet, right, for ARPA funding the boiler?
That
So-
would be cool too, but.
Yeah, so the ARPA funds have not been dollar designated. They haven't been identified for specific purposes. What the ARPA process did was identify where the community thought we should put our money, what was most important, and the grass boiler scored very highly on where we should invest. And then the boards in the budgeting process determine how much to spend in what areas.
When will that?
Budgeting process is October to town meeting and village meeting for the villages.
Anyone else have any questions? I like it.
Just one question. What do you know, so this isn't something that's directly related to this, but how much do you know about the viability of the rest of that building overall? Once you get the boiler done.
On the bones of the building?
Yeah.
I think the bones of
Will
the
it
building.
need any other major investments within the next?
So we do have a lot of, in addition to the mechanical assessment, we had an architectural, structural, and I can't remember the third one, another set of assessments done, because USDA, that was on the recommendation of the USDA person. He said that they like to make sure that there's not going to be something that pops up in a project. I like to have the assessments done ahead of time. So we've had all the assessments done. And structurally, there's some minor stuff, but the bones are good, for lack of a better analogy. There's a lot of bringing things up to some current codes, that once you start construction, you bring them up to current codes. We're also looking at, one of my board members right now is actively looking at solar. When we replaced the 12,000 square foot, the biggest portion of our roof, one of the biggest portions, 2 summers ago, we made it solar ready. So we're looking at solar. So if we can get our heating costs under control and our electrical costs under control, then that makes us extremely viable. And then we can start chipping away at all of the other little things that we just don't have the capital funding for. But we can start to accumulate from savings with the boiler project and then eventually the solar project, which is much less money. I think 165,000 on that. We can start to take away. I have a list. I have a list like the Dead Sea Scrolls of things, little things that need to be taken care of, but nothing, to my knowledge, no other major things. We've been doing the plumbing and sewer lines kind of as issues come up, we've been replacing them all. So slowly we're starting to redo the internal processes.
Yeah, just as long as you know that you've already done that assessment and that there's nothing else major, wouldn't want to get to the point where you have invested $2 million into the boiler and then find out there's some other issues which will cost more with the building's work, But yeah, it sounds like you've done due diligence.
Okay, Gary, can you kind of explain the process here? I know this is a sub-grant for the town is supplying for the loan, and so can you kind of...
Yeah, so for the community development block grants, the town is the applicant, and GRASS would be a sub-grantee, and a large building provides health care for our community, walkable for the 3,000 people in Bellows Falls, and is eligible for a $500,000 implementation grant. And what the VCDP requires for that is that because it's public money and it's geared towards a low-income demographic, we qualify in Bellows Falls because of 64.9% LMI community, so we have something called area-wide benefit. And our liaison, Nathan Cleveland, is confirming that this project is eligible under the area-wide benefit. Very less burdensome than having to show the percentage of your clients, 51% of your clients coming in using the building, doing that type of audit, which happens on the Springfield Medical Care Systems at any rate, but the area-wide benefit is a much better way to go, and we think that that'll work for this project. And what they require, because of that public benefit, is that we have a public hearing where we announce it 15 days before the public hearing, that it's noticed newspaper, on our website, and that we tell folks that we're applying for block grant funds to put a boiler into the grass building and to sub-grant to grass for that purpose. And it has to, the hearing, the public hearing has to take place 5 days before the grant applications are due. And the applications are due September 13th. So September 8th would be the latest day we could have a public hearing. We like to do them at a select board meeting because you folks are representatives of the community. Folks watch these meetings, Fact TV is at it, so we're assured of a lot of the community hearing about them if we do them with a select board meeting, but it's not required that it's at a select board meeting. So just in terms of scheduling, we will notice a public hearing soon for early September, and at your whatever works for the select board, if you're able to do it, to have a meeting in that time frame. And if not, there will be one, and we will ask Fact TV to be there so that the public can watch it and have it on Facebook Live and all of those things. And we do have funds to cover that service as well if we need to.
The date is tossed around to September 6th. That's the day after Labor Day for this open hearing. You don't have to have a quorum for this meeting, but we do have to warn them. So anybody can pop in or not. You don't have to have a quorum, it's just a public hearing. Our next scheduled select board meeting is the 20th. So that's going to be too late for the 13th to get the deadline. So just for planning purposes, keep that in mind. You can attend it if you want. If you're not here, well, that's all right too.
So if that's your pleasure, we'll schedule it for the public hearing for September 6th.
Probably start at 6 o'clock like a normal
6 o'clock, September 6th, Lower Theater. Great. And so there's a resolution for this application to move forward, and it's in your packet. The grant agreement resolution, and they're both pretty much the same, except one identifies the implementation grant number for grass, and the one for the train station identifies a planning grant. Otherwise, the resolutions are the same. If you want to do them both one right after the other, I could give a brief rundown on the planning grant for the train station.
Gary, I noticed the money question again. Are these just out and out grants, or are they repayable grants, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they are, they're grants. They do require matching funds. So in Marty's budget, she has different funds designated to match federal funds. And these are an 80-20 match, so so for the town grant, $60,000, it would be, we would match $6,666.66 for the $60,000 in planning funds.
So I'm thinking they're not repayable, in other words, if the progress goes forward, it's just a flat out grant.
Yes.
Oh, no, we have to, they're reimbursement grants. So the money is spent and then we invoice or we get reimbursed. Yes.
Right. Okay, does anybody have that in mind? I'll take a motion to approve the municipal resolutions for VCTV, CDBG grants for Cross and the railroad station.
So moved.
What's
Is there a
that?
second?
And just so it's in the motion, just every select board member has the resolution and the motion is for the resolutions as spelled out in as presented.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion, questions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, adopting both resolutions, would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. They'll be coming around for signatures here in a second.
Thank you.
Okay. And the other one's made the rounds on it. I see. Alright, we don't have any bills and warrants today. There's no bills and warrants to take care of tonight, so agenda items for September 20th. Probably that might include the petition for the swap shop, maybe, do you think,
Yeah.
Rick?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay. Well, we'll work it up before that. We got some time to play with that one.
We also invited VHB, the engineers, to give us an update on the Depot Bridge, and sort of this will be their last discussion with us prior to bidding, so they're at the point now where I think we get a real good sense of timing, what the various concerns might be. We started the program to talk with our businesses about impacts and things we can mitigate, so they're presenting on the meeting of the 20th, so I would anticipate that'll be a fairly significant amount of time for that meeting.
Okay, next would be the items for the drug board agenda, which is the tail end of September, correct? Scott,
Yes.
29th? 27th, excuse
Put
me.
it on that Tuesday, yeah.
We got a little time to play with that, so Gary.
Yeah, so the Wrigley Group would like to present on the impact of the density and zoning regulations at the joint board meeting.
Okay.
So I don't know if folks were Rockingham Incremental Development Alliance. We had a technical assistance program for close to a year where they ran through what it takes to develop a housing property or a commercial property for that matter in Bellows Falls under the current zoning rules and the nature of the properties in that zone, how many were conforming, how many non-conforming, and challenges to developers and things that would make it easier for development in Bellows Falls, or challenges that we have.
Okay. Now, moving right along. Other business, start with Bonnie. Elijah?
Well, I have one suggestion. I think that in the future we should just an idea, consider holding more of our meetings up here during the warm months at the Rockingham Meeting House.
You might have to start a little bit earlier. This will be a candlelight.
Probably thinking towards next year.
So,
I'm all set.
Rick?
Peter, you were going to bring us up to date on the 121 bridge question?
Oh yeah, I'll get to it.
All right.
I'm just giving you guys a chance before I start rambling.
All right.
Okay, three things. I'd like to thank Walt Kiesek for bush hogging the Coleman property on Sac River Cemetery. The mower did get part of it, but they're about 4 foot tall weeds. They couldn't get in there with a mower, so Walt didn't offer. I asked him, and he refused payment, so he did that for us for free. And also at the recycling center, Dale Ward supplied some 4-inch square plexiglass pieces to attach the sticker to. because these new cars have all those safety issues on them, like forward braking, lane control and all that stuff. And if you put your sticker in the window and block that access, it doesn't work. So he burned out a computer in his car by putting the sticker in the wrong spot. So he donated a bunch of those, so we've been handing those out for people that don't want to put their sticker on. And if you notice, their new inspection stickers are kind of on the other side now, and they kind of have to be careful where they put those too. So, okay. Guess that takes care of that. Now, 121. I attended the July 7th meeting, and I would advise the board, if you got a minute, look on the Westminster Select Board minutes on the 13th of July and the 27th of July. There's quite a detailed explanation of what they think they want to do. The first one goes with just redoing the bridge on July 13th. Then when they found the bad steel, the next meeting they're going to put the bicycle path areas on the new bridge. There's other complications that'll explain it in there. I had J.B. McCarthy sitting to my left, and the contractor was right in front of me, and of course the big question was how long are they going to close the bridge. They were expecting 12 to 18 months. Well, that's been being changed. They were going to dismantle the bridge in this fall, but after discussion, then now we're going to postpone the dismantling of the bridge until March. J.B. McCarthy suggested they could order the steel for the bridge in September, which is going to be the next meeting, so we'll have more details after that one. And they will take and have the steel ready for the spring when they get started after they get through it. So rather than have the bridge empty and nobody doing anything, they decided to leave it up for right now until March of next year. So they'll be taking it apart at that point and then close it, and everybody have to use a detour. They've also closed the construction schedule. They want to start the construction in April and finish it in October. Pretty heavy timeline, and the contractor right now is still trying to convince them to go to 12 to 18 months. And I don't know where that's going to end up. We may find out at the next meeting in September. And had a visit from Leslie Goldman to my house with another, I think it was Boss Lund brought out. And we got talking about it and she's been talking to J.B. McCarthy at the state too, and trying to get some resolution as to a temporary bridge or not. And of course Westminster's balking because they don't want to spend the extra money. So I think the object of the meeting, when we have it the next time, is going to be not to be antagonistic, but to try and work with them to get Westminster to get an 8-month schedule to get the bridge completed. Now, that may affect them changing contractors. If that happens, I hope they're going to start the process to rebid in September, not wait until July or March of next year. So it's a bunch of rolling stuff, and nobody really knows what they want to do. So Leslie wanted me to go to Montpelier and kibitz with or lobby McCarthy, but he suggested he might want to come down August 23rd. I know it's another meeting, but August 23rd, and he would go over the details and stuff, because if they wait until after our meeting in September, it's going to be too late. They won't be able to explain the details and give everybody the information. So, because then if Westminster changes horses again, here we go. So that's the update on 121. So that's where we stand. Anybody got any questions? Try to answer them. Yep.
Thanks for attending that Westminster Select Board meeting, Peter. That was really good.
Yeah, well, Scott wasn't here. He asked me to go, and I'd probably go with Scott. I mean, imagine Scott was going down to the 13th. And also, they wanted to talk about recycling down there too. Ally wanted to talk to the interim manager, wanted to talk about recycling, but it never materialized after the meeting. So there we go. So if we moved on the 23rd, then he would, I assume, attend by Zoom. I will not be available in person, but I can attend by Zoom, and Leslie said she would attend by Zoom. But it would be a case of probably inviting maybe somebody from Saxon River, just to add more fuel to the fire, so to speak. The only trustee from Saxon River was Carl Ball, showed up at the July 27th meeting with me. And then we could also invite some people from the Westminster Board, if they so desired to come, as they did invite us to go to their meeting. See what happens, we, you know, not to feel that out, I don't know how anybody feels about it. If we get our team to work out fine, well then, we'll have a big crowd, I guess. So, all right, that being said, there's no need for an executive session, I'll entertain the motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I don't want to keep you up too late, Bonnie, I see you're trying to nod off here. Second. Okay, motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. We're out of here, folks.